Good morning
Afternoon, evening.
or afternoon or evening. I know people are all over the place. Hello.
Hi, hello.
How are you, Suzanne?
I'm fine. How are you all doing?
Good, good, good. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to be a fly on the wall.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see. Hold on. Right, and hello, Julia. All right, maybe she's getting situated there. Okay, a hi in the chat. Great. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sharing my slides right away. Various people will certainly, I'm sure, continue to kind of show up as we're going here. And I'll take you through the flow of what this first class is about. So let me go ahead and share my screen so we can get to the slides. And then I'll be doing a few different things here. So hang on one second. I'm just going to keep it like this. Sean, does that look readable? Can you see it
Yeah,
well?
yeah.
Suzanne?
I've got
Yeah.
Zoom
Yes.
stuff all over my screen, so I'm trying not to
Okay,
block
yeah.
it. Monitor the chat and see everyone, but it's a little tricky.
All right,
Yeah,
I know, I
great.
know. I always feel like I need like three giant computer screens to like monitor
Yeah.
everything. All right, and again, welcome to those just joining. So what I'm going to do here is just start with the introductory information. So today we're going to be covering introductory content and red and black. I'm Veronica Chase. Sean Michael is here with me, and let me just move to our design and a little bit of, about who we are. We're just going to give you a little bit of an overview. So Sean, why don't you start with your intro first?
Okay, excuse me, everyone, while I butcher BG5 terminology with human design because I'm always I'm always overlapping. I just got done with analyst training and certification, which I'm really happy about, and also with BG. Well, I've been done with BG5 for a while, but just got instructor certified together with Veronica, so that's pretty cool. So I'll try to shift to BG5 here because I've been doing HD analyses all week. Yeah, I'm basically, well, what would you like? What would be beneficial? Do you want to hear
Keep it
about my design?
real.
You want to hear about my background or what, just real briefly, what would
Yeah,
be
just real
cool?
briefly, Sean, I think share a little bit about, I think your career and your background would be interesting, and then just a couple of simple highlights, from your design.
Great. Okay, so start the 30-minute time clock. Okay, I've done a lot of things. I'm in my fifth or sixth vocation now. I will say really quickly, I lived for 16 years out of a suitcase traveling the world with people doing service work, and not knowing that I was being trained to be a licensed professional in clinical psychology. And so I'm actually a practicing therapist, but I fell in love with human design at the end of my graduate school. Was introduced at the very end of graduate school, 2019, and then really started my own process at the beginning of 2022 with formal training in human design and BG5, basically 24/7 for the last 3.5, almost 4 years now. So I just love it. I love it. I'm a projector and advisor in BG5 terminology. I'm a 4-1 juxtaposed profile, or what's they're called fixed fate or steadfast profile in BG5. And it basically means that I'm a train track. I can't really deviate. So if you like who I am and what I can, how I can serve, great. If you don't, I can't really change or deviate so much. I'm not a willow tree. I'm kind of I kind of go in one direction and one direction only, in a very influential way with what I learn about. So I have to make sure that I learn correctly. I have to make sure that I'm educated correctly because what I externalize can be powerful for the right people. So that's why I'm so into my studies. I love reading, just continuing with all that and mastering these systems because I love them. They're so incredibly helpful for people. And it just lights me up. I love to serve other people's processes. I love to help with their own individuation, with their own differentiation, and with their own professional development for BG5 and, in what we're entering into in the years to come and really getting a feel or a lay of the land on how they work with material resources, how they work with money, how they work with business, how, their relationship with money in the material world is in alignment with their own spirit, with their own way of being in the world. That is really exciting to me because I think it's really necessary with, what our organization around money in the world right now and how unhealthy that can be. So That's what I picked out of the blue. I speak unconsciously. I don't know what's going to come up. That's what came up. So is that helpful, or would you like to know anything more?
That's good, Sean. Thank you so much
Good.
for that intro. And then
Sure.
just a little bit about me. So I'm a 4.6 classic builder. I started my studies in 2020 with BG5 and have exclusively studied with BG5. So I'm a career and business consultant. I'm a cycles consultant, a profit potential coach, and I'm an instructor for the Institute. So in terms of my overall background, I have 30 plus years at this point in the human resources field. And most of what I've done has really been about consulting and coaching, facilitating learning, designing learning, really everything having to do with what it takes to be successful in business. So when I first discovered human design and BG5, it was like in 2019, which in many ways is so odd that it was only then that I came upon it, given all of my pursuits over the years. But the time came when the time came, and it was just so right. I jumped right in and I never looked back. So I'm excited to be here with all of you. We do have people that are going to, be in here from various countries. So we have our core people who have officially signed up. This particular time, I did offer the first class for free. So several of you are here to check it out and see what it's all about and learn more about my style, Sean's style, the types of things we're going to be covering. So all the people that are listed here on the right, you're all of my special visitors for today. So again, I'm glad you're here, and I would like you to, hang on at the end, and I'll share a bit more additional information with you. But otherwise, we have Kelly, Andrea, and Lee that are, here from various countries that are already officially signed up. So I like to begin all of my sessions with the energy of the day. So this is about looking at the transits and how they might be impacting us today. You can use the transits to help you manage your workload, take advantage of the daily qualities. The one thing to know is, we're not all living the same life at all, right? An obvious statement, but the transits are out there and they're happening, but the way in which each of us is impacted will absolutely vary on a whole host of factors, not the least of which is what is in your design and where are the connections, where are the challenges, what's happening. But I have found over many years now of doing this, and I often take notes on, maybe not every day, but certainly throughout the transit cycle in the week so that I can remember what is going on, so that when I come back to that same cycle in the following year, I can note to see, okay, there is a chance I'm going to get affected, possibly in this same way. So I'm going to switch over here to showing you a few other things. So I have Maya Mechanics up. This is the software that we use as consultants, and I've pulled up as many charts as I was able to, in the sense that I didn't have all of your birth data. So I don't have a design up for everybody. And then within here, we can look at the just now transits. So when we're looking at the just now, let me just get over here to another place. Why am I not seeing? Okay. So when we're looking at the just now transits, we look at the conscious side of things, right? We're not looking at everything. We're looking at the conscious side of things. So there's a few things that I'll look at right off the bat. The first is checking out what line quality we're in. Now, we were in the 3, we just switched over to the 4. So for several of you, certainly Sean is at the end of his day over in Thailand, and Suzanne, I presume you're over in Europe somewhere. So, okay, you're, later in your day, and Harma, Jana, Julia, I'm not totally sure where everyone is from, but the 3 was in play. So the 3 as a quality is really about being active and experimental and exploring and being adventurous. And it's also about making mistakes, right? There's a mutative quality to the 3 of just kind of getting out there and checking things out. It just moved into the 4 fairly recently. And the 4 is really more about like friendship and networking and opportunities and connection and that type of thing. It's also more of a fixed quality, like Sean was describing his 4-1, right? And I'm a 4-6. I definitely have aspects of me that are also fixed because of that 4. But the combinations of how our things come together are a little bit different. So that's the quality, right? That's kind of flavoring the day. So I think it's awesome that you're here checking out BG5 and checking out the Foundations course, meeting other people and just learning more about like what this is all about. We're also in the 64. So the 64 is in the sun, which is the conscious core essence. And the 64 is, you know, about abstraction. So there is this conviction quality that's active right now. And the 63 is about doubt. So here's the thing to kind of know, like right off the bat, like when we're talking about qualities that are up here in the head, it could just feel really mental, like these next several days, because we go up to the 6th quality and then we're going to move into the next trait. So in a couple of days we'll be moving. But if you've noticed yourself spiraling mentally these last few days, this is why. And it's just recognizing that, okay, you know, it's not you per se, right? It's the transit. So then the question just becomes, all right, well, what do I do about that? Sometimes it's just like getting away from other people because it's just getting compounded as well when it's like we have the transit, then we're around a lot of people. Anywhere where we have openness in our design, we're potentially influenced by this. So those are a couple of highlights. The 6437 is also active as a strength. The 6447 rather, and that is about the experiential process, right? So again, this processing and there's just this combination of, you know, like wanting to like figure things out and solve things, but you may not be able to, because there is also kind of this cycle aspect. The 6447 is not about you solving something in the now. It's really about, you know, trying to detach a little bit and notice like, well, what am I thinking about? What is kind of coming to me and what does it matter, you know, in terms of whatever it is I do or whatever it is I'm working on. The other thing is the strength of the 2057 is also active right now. And this strength is called spontaneity. So the 57 is definitely this intuitive knowing in the now. And anytime we're talking about these intuitive hits, it can be, you know, very quiet, passes quickly. So again, this goes back to, well, if you're busy up here spiraling in your mind, you're not even going to notice this. So if you have the 57, like I have the 57 connecting to the 20, and I'll say this too about the numbers you see over here, you know, the further down something is in the chart here, those are attached to the larger planets, right? And those move much more slowly. So these traits are going to be sitting in these areas for quite a while. So it's also helpful to kind of understand that as well. There's much more quicker movement the higher up in the chart that we are. All right, so that's just a little bit of the energy of the day, just to kind of give you the flavor of what we're working with. So let me get into some introductory material. So, you know, certainly for foundations, I always recommend you keep your career design handy. So much of what you're going to be doing is learning more about yourself and what you're noticing in your design. I mean, even for me now, 6 years in of really very specifically, you know, learning and working and studying and teaching and doing all of these things, every time I go back in and like I look at something else a little bit more closely, I absolutely notice something else again and again and again. So I feel like you will just continue to unpack what is in your design. And of course, the other benefit of being in class with a group of people and traveling, you know, in this journey together is that you're also going to see a lot of other people's designs, and you're going to learn very quickly. So if you're a builder, well, you're going to see designs of advisors, you're going to see designs of initiators, and you're going to see other builders, classic builders and express builders, and hear from them firsthand about how they're experiencing things. So no matter where you are in this journey, people do come in, of course, with varying levels of knowledge. But I would just say you really do just want to take a beginner's mind. And I myself am always trying to keep an aspect of beginner's mind as well, because the information really is layer upon layer upon layer of how you take it and use it in another way. But the one thing I have seen that is absolutely true is that having really strong and accurate foundational knowledge, I think, is critical to your success as a coach and consultant in this work. Not making things up, not just, saying random things or surfacey things, but really knowing what something means and how it applies to someone's design. So this is about experiencing and living the information, not just learning it. So we're starting today with introduction, and we're going to get into the red and black. The Foundations 1 goes from September 6th through November 8th. So we're going to go 10 weeks in a row straight through. Then we will have a pretty significant break there through the end of November into December. And then we start back up in semester 2 in later January. All right, so in terms of today's agenda, I'm going to get into the times we're in, what BG5 is all about, and then I'll talk a bit more about the Foundations course. Usually somewhere close to the top of the hour, we'll do a quick break, so you can just step away for a moment, refresh yourself with a beverage or a little snack, and then come back. And then I always get into the core teaching for the day. Today, that is the binary and synthesis of career design, and then I'll review the assignment, and then we'll do any Q&A at the end. And of course, like as I'm going along, just put things in chat. Sean is monitoring it. He'll flag me if I need to stop and, kind of address anything. And otherwise, we'll kind of keep cruising along here. So the problem, in a sense, is the question of why this information is more important now than ever. And it really does have to do with these changing times that we're in. The whole direction is a shock. Ra told us this. So Ra Uru is the founder of Human Design. And, that's also an important thing to know about BG5 and any studies, of course, that you've done potentially with IHDS is we rely on the source information from Ra. We don't make up other things and say, oh, maybe he meant this or maybe he meant that. No, we use exactly what it was that he received. And we, in the BG5 world, apply that to work and career. So this is about learning how to operate correctly as yourself. And we are kind of in this state in the world that when those who really understand how to operate as themselves are ultimately the ones who, in a sense, can kind of make it through, if you will, the disorder and the chaos and the confusion, because all these people who are just lost in, following this person, doing what this person tells them to do, believing in this, and never coming back to, well, who am I? Do I know who I am and how I'm here to operate correctly? How I ultimately make the choices in my life that are the best for me? And that alone has to be one of the singular best learnings I have gotten from this experience, is that I've really come into a deep sense of understanding that the only decisions that are the right decisions are the ones that are right for me. And they might not be the right thing for you, right? I just know that they're right for me. And prior to me learning this info, I definitely, as many people can be, highly influenced by other people and what they thought I should do. And it could have been good intention, not ill will, right? Just family, friends, your spouse, whoever, your partner saying, well, you should do this. Don't you think you should do this? But none of that matters. You have to get to this place of knowing what is truly right for you. And that is the journey we are on in Foundations, and really grounding into that place. So we're saying times are changing. What do we mean by that? Well, in February of 2027, which is now not that far away, the background frequency is shifting. And the thing to understand about that is, it just is what it is. Like, I think of it as, well, we're going to be in like a new soup, a new energetic soup, and there's no changing that. We're just going to be in a different place. Right now, we are fully embracing the world of delusion in the current world pattern. So false enthusiasm, unrealized claims, expressing fantasy as fact. We see it everywhere, right? Nobody really knows what the truth is anymore. We'll hear something and we're like, is that the truth? Wait, or is this the truth? And this is why, again, it goes back to, well, the only truth you're ever really going to know is what's the truth within me. That's the only thing I can know and count on for sure. We are moving into the 26, which is about wisdom, the contemplation in the now, which results in the ability to apply this new understanding. But again, it's not like it's some magic wand. It's there in the background frequency, but if you're living out of your own shadows day to day, how are you tapping into your knowing and aligning with this becomes the question. So, we'll continue to explore that a little bit more on this. The times that we've been in, we call this the era of planning. And the thing to know about these eras is, in a sense, again, the background frequency, it switches, and it's like a light switch in that sense. But the whole thing of how we grow into the era takes time, like hundreds of years. So over the course of hundreds of years around the world, institutions and communities and agreements and bargains and trusted authorities and this whole thing of all of us coming together, sometimes on a massive scale, and agreeing to do something like work in a giant company or build a massive bridge or do all these really big things in the world. It took lots of individuals agreeing to the bargain. Yes, we're going to keep coming together. But we've noticed in these last several years how that bargain is falling apart, right? COVID is often the thing that we attach to kind of the trigger. It's the noticeable trigger that happened when things really started this path of disintegrating and changing the way that we work. So we're moving towards a place that is really focused on individuality. It is about self-empowerment, contemplation, the abundance of spirit, our unique gifts, trusting ourselves, breaking down barriers with others. But again, do you know how to do that? What that is for you? It's not someone else saying to me, hey, you should be an individual. Here's how you can be an individual by following me. No. That's not being an individual, right? I have got to follow my own path, and getting to that place of knowing what that is, that's the experiment. And that is, there's a degree of trial and error in that, right? I have to just keep living it every day and see what I'm noticing and keep going in that direction of what's right for me. So BG5 is the career and business application of human design. So Ra gave us language for both of these things, right? The sort of original human design language, but also the business application of this. So the language is switched up a little bit. Why? Well, we're just trying to make more of a connection to people who are in the business world. So, we're not focused so much on this transformational personal application. In BG5, we're trying to help people really ultimately be materially successful. How are you designed to make money? How do you fulfill your purpose? What gifts get called out of you? What work environment is best for you? How are you here to work with others? And knowing these themes for yourself and really beginning to piece that together for yourself and then actually using it and living it, that is, to me, the key of how all of those things come together. I told you I've been in the world of human resources for 30 years, but the way in which I was operating before was absolutely different, right? Like a lot of people out there, I was really just behaving in a different way, often just going out there and forcing things to happen or trying to make things happen. And by the way, we all have the potential to make something happen, but then it's like, okay, at times I was bringing stuff to me that were just not the right thing at all for me. So learning to truly operate and live as a builder, that's been the learning. So BG5 stands for Base Group 5. These are the foundational building blocks that determine the success within any business. So the base group refers to the 3 to 5 individuals that come together to create these 12 core business skills that are necessary for success. So we're always moving in and out of groups, and BG5 is about how we dive into the mechanics of all of this. Now, in foundations, we don't take a deep dive into like the penta, the small group dynamics, but we're laying all of the foundational elements to get you ready for that in certification. You know, you need all the base information before you get here, right? You have to understand how people are meant to operate correctly, individually, and then have another layer of understanding about how you operate inside a group setting. So there is certainly, you know, a healthy advantage to conditioning. We talk about conditioning a lot. We cannot escape conditioning. It is really about being aware of how you are being conditioned. What does that look like in your design? So to make money with others, well, we've got to connect with people. Whether you're in business for yourself, you're in a partnership, you work in a small group, you work in a large organization, you're a boss, you report to someone who's a boss, whatever it is, you know, we have got to connect with other people. So the opportunity again is that when you're aligned and you're doing what's correct for you, then you will naturally influence them and they will also influence you. And in a sense, right, that is an aspect of conditioning. You condition others, you are conditioned. So we do that with each other. It happens through the transits, but again, we can look at this in a positive way and really learn how to connect with our decision-making strategy. And you're going to hear me talk about that again and again and again and again, because it always comes back to that. I have noticed that sometimes I'll have people, you know, come to me initially, or even, you know, clients that I have, because I've been working with clients now since late 2020 as well, using all of this. And they might know aspects of human design, or someone might have told them, oh, hey, you're meant to work in a cave, and they'll come to me with that, you know, so that's part of like the variables in the advanced knowledge. You know what? You have to understand the basics of your design first. You have to first understand how you're here to function optimally in this world, and then we can get into all those other layers as well. But if you're not making decisions in a way that's correct for you, my opinion is that very little else matters. The fact that you know you should be working in a cave-like atmosphere is not going to help you if you keep making the wrong decisions for yourself. So I emphasize this a lot in our time together. That is the work that I think is really important. It's going to keep coming back to that again and again, because like I said, the closer and closer we get into 2027, right, it's just going to get amplified that much more of you understanding who you are meant to be as an individual. And for us, right, the opportunity as BG5 consultants is how do we help other people? I mean, I'm always really thrilled and proud and ecstatic about the work that I do with my clients, to help them realize that there is another way for them to live. So this is a quote from Jim Carrey. He just talks about the way we make money is really by serving others. And it's a really good fit for everything that we're going to talk about here, right? How will you serve the world? What do others need that your talent can provide? And what he said was, you know, the effect that we have on others is really the most valuable currency out there. And I think that really does make a lot of sense, right? That material success is simply a byproduct of the service you provide to others that leaves you with a feeling of satisfaction, success, peace, or delight. And these key indicators are tied to your career type. All right, so let me get into a little bit more about just an overview of foundations. So this is about unlocking your personal potential, right? Again, that's where we're focused in foundations. I really spend a lot of time making sure that you understand you. first. So I'm always going into everyone's designs. We spend time in breakouts. We figure out how to apply what you're learning. And then of course you have your assignments and your contributions in the forum of sharing with the group, and learning in that way is only going to help you that much more, right? To understand who you are, uncover your hidden potential, and then get familiar with the BG5 terminology. So, it's fine that we use both, but I'm always going to keep pulling you back to the BG5 language so that we get grounded in that. When I'm talking with my clients, who are always business people, I'm using this terminology to help them connect with what this, is going to look like for them. So there are 2 semesters in foundations. It's about understanding yourself, understanding others, understanding the design, the whole chart, and then preparing you for professional studies for those of you that already know you intend to go right into certification and want to work with clients. This is the starting point for all of that. And then I just included a little note over here for those of you that did sign up for semester 1 but did not do the package. I'm just reminding you that the package would just mean that you're registered for both semesters. You get a couple of other items here, like a discounted complete report, a self-paced course on emotional intelligence, and then a 90-minute session with me. So even if you've already had an overview session, I feel confident in saying, it'll be a different session with me, right? Because I'm going to go all over the place with you in that 90 minutes in your design. So I travel with you in your design in a way that just makes sense. So you are welcome to switch to the package, or for those that are here, visiting for this first class preview, that's what you get if you just sign right up for the package. But you can switch to the package at any time, along the way leading up to semester 2, and we will honor that. All right, so in semester 1, we are going to be talking about the conscious and unconscious aspects of your design. We're going to get into that today. And then I get into the 9 key functions. What does healthy and unhealthy look like? We take a deeper dive into each of the career types and what does it mean to use your energy efficiently. Personal interaction style is tied to that, how you're meant to interact effectively. And then, of course, the whole thing of decision making is huge. What is your process for correct decisions, and where are you likely getting pulled off track from your conditionings? We'll talk about all of that. We'll get into the key indicators for navigating life to keep you on track and notice when you're off track. In fact, when I first started learning this was where I gravitated at first, because I was able to see that so clearly. It definitely took me time to figure out and really connect with my decision-making strategy and notice it, and then make decisions from it, right? It's not like you're just going to wake up tomorrow and be like, boom, I got it. Okay, now I am moving through my world, making all the right decisions, right? It does not go down that way. And, there are still times where I can absolutely get pulled off track. Again, the conditioning never goes away. Whatever your patterns are, they're there. What we're trying to do is get aware of what is happening. Now, if I realize that I said yes to something that I now realize is a no, now I don't hesitate. I just go back and say, hey, I know I said yes to that, but now this is a no for me. And, but a no for now. Sometimes I'll say it that way too, right? Because, we're always going to be super sensitive, depending again upon our history and our conditioning and all of that, of feeling like, oh my God, this person's going to be so mad at me, or they're going to hate me, or they're not going to love me anymore, or whatever it is. But in essence, it doesn't matter. What matters is you following your correct decision-making strategy and doing what's right for you. And the one thing I will say about that too is I have absolutely noticed that when I say yes to the things that are right for me and no to the things that are not right for me, everybody else around me benefits as well. My husband, my daughters, my friends, my clients, the people I work with. There is this flow that absolutely cascades around me. And to me, I have really notice and define that as, to me, that's what it really means to be authentic. to really be yourself and to live in that place of making the decisions that are right for you, even if other people don't understand it or don't agree with it. Later on, we'll get into assimilation, how we take in information, and then we will spend several classes on shadows and distractions. That is a huge component of understanding human design. And I think, all of us in this world who study this, I think really gravitate to this place because there's so much more important information in the shadows and distractions that is also going to form an important base for understanding your own conditioning. And then again, using that with clients later on. So really knowing that. And then in semester 2, we'll get into the themes. We call them themes in BG5. This is the circuitry. What it looks like, in terms of how that circuitry comes to life in your design and what that applies. So that's a whole other layer. And often what can happen, by the way, is in semester 1, let me hop back up here. You may come in feeling like, I feel pretty good about a lot of what I know in here, and that's awesome. That's great. We'll all just help to build on your knowledge. But what usually happens when we get to semester 2 is there's a little bit of a rude awakening, like, oh my gosh, there's way, way more depth of information that we get into very quickly in semester 2, right? Because we got to take you into this whole other place, again, to ultimately get people ready for certification, which goes in a whole other direction. So the circuitry alone is like the first 5 or at least first 5 or so classes in semester 2. So it is deep. Then we get into the strengths, the traits, the qualities, the public roles, right? And breaking down all of that. And we keep pulling everything back together, right? So along the way, we're kind of dissecting, in a sense, all of these individual elements, but we have to keep pulling it back together, pulling it back together. So in terms of who can benefit from foundations, I mean, this is really, if you're just at this point on, hey, I'm on a personal journey, I want to do this for myself, wonderful. We invite you, right? I mean, when I first started, I knew I would be a consultant right away, but I was already a consultant and a coach. So I knew it was a logical progression for me. But if you're not sure, that's okay. It's not about figuring it out right now, right? Let that come to you. Let your decision-making strategy guide you. It's for those who definitely want to go on and do this work with clients, again, getting into your design and ultimately pursuing certification. In terms of required materials for foundations, the book, first and foremost, right? I mean, you can see all my little tabs here in my book. You need the book. So if you don't have the book yet, go get the book. You can access that on Amazon and just start using it. Just start reading it, right? Because it's all of the base information about human design. So to be successful in class, there's really no shortcut. You've got to practice. You got to read. You got to go back and look at stuff. And really, what I would encourage you to do is just set up a bit of a pattern for yourself. Show up to class. If you have to miss a class, it's okay. We always record everything. Everything will be posted, but then make sure you get to it and listen to the recording and take it in. Look at how you are living the information. Don't just try to memorize everything, because that, in fact, I would say would be overwhelming, except for a few types of people that can probably handle immense amounts of memorization. Most people can't. So you want to come at it in layers and, in a sense, repetition and exposure over time. And that's the beauty of doing this in 2 semesters as well. You'll have assignments. We'll talk about them in class. It is most certainly not about perfect. I am not looking for perfection. I am definitely looking for you to come and share your experience. That's what's most important. And, start your own binder for your handouts. And like I said, just sort of get yourself organized. Now, there is a possibility that some of you may be wanting these IASET credits for your studies. If it depends upon if some of you are, for example, paying through this through an organization that you work for, and it's because of the IASET credits, then just know that you're expected to attend and participate in all classes, complete all the assignments, complete the semester project, you know, a payment and everything happens up front. You have to have the materials and sign off on the agreements and all of that. So when all of those things are placed, then you are issued your IACET credits after each of the semesters. Now, this is not something that everybody is going to be concerned about, but I just like to note that because BG5 is an IACET provider. The other thing I just want to note for the moment is that next week we will meet earlier. I will open the Zoom 1 hour earlier. So I'll open the Zoom at 9 a.m. my time. Remember, I'm on the East Coast in the US. So I'm on Eastern Standard Time, but that will be 1300 UTC. Today we started at 1400. So 1 hour earlier so that we can do a proper meet and greet with everybody. I'll bring everybody's designs up. We'll look at that while you're speaking and telling us about your background. You're just going to use the same course link in the portal. I'll go in the portal a little bit later and just point out some things as well over there. But it's a chance for us to get grounded in our class and with all of the participants that are going to move forward in the class. All right, so at this point, a little bit earlier from the top of the hour, but let's go ahead and take a break. And I have 10:40 on my clock, so just be back at 10:45, so just 5 minutes from now. So take a quick break and come on back, and then we're going to get into the red and black aspects in our first class. Okay, I'll see you shortly. And Sean, I'm just taking a look here. Anything coming up? Thanks. All right, so we're going to go ahead and continue on here. So at this stage, every week, you know, when I'm running the classes like this, what I like everyone to do is to keep their cameras off, and I'll turn mine off as well. And, you know, same thing, stay muted. You can absolutely stay active in chat. Sean is paying attention to it, but it just allows us all to get focused, and this can really help our advisors in the room, right, to not be paying attention to one another, and really for everybody just to kind of concentrate and focus. So I'm going to turn off my video. And I am, of course, going to keep speaking here and bringing you along. So this subject area is about the binary and synthesis of the career design chart. And this is where we start. So, you know, what do we notice about a chart? We can know that the chart absolutely tells us a unique story. That is for sure. And one of the things that I would say I have been amazed at again and again is, you know, hey, I could absolutely, and I have, you know, meet someone else who is a gut response builder who also has the 515, but then there's, you know, other qualities about them that are different. And the one thing I have definitely noticed is like, really, when we say your chart is a unique story, it's absolutely a unique story. You cannot presume that everyone or anyone that you meet is somehow, even if they have your same career type or even some of your strengths, that they're having the same experience. They are not. It is absolutely a unique story. Why? Because we are not any one aspect of this design. You know, we're all of it. We're having this entire experience of conscious and unconscious, you know, but what we're also looking at is we can see where we have consistent and reliable energy and where we are open to conditioning, right? I have a decent amount of openness in my design. You know, what's connected, what's not connected. And ultimately the goal is that you fall in love with your own design. But you'll certainly hear me say along the way, like when someone has a particular quality, I'll say, oh, I love that quality. Oh, I wish I had that quality. But I don't stay in that headspace. I just appreciate the way certain qualities come together in someone's design. But I have to tell you, no matter whose design I'm looking at, including my own, I can always find something that I think is really incredible about a person's design, you know, to help that person connect with it and fall in love with it for themselves. And again, also realize, you know, Sean was saying this right at the beginning, right? This is the science of differentiation. That's how Ra described it to us, right? See how your design is different from other designs, because that's what we're trying to get you. It's not about, well, how am I like this person? How am I like that person? No, it doesn't matter. It's how are you your individual self, right? How do you live in your unique story in your design? That's what we want to get you to. When it comes to the components of the career design, we're looking at various things right now. I listed it right here. This particular design is an advisor, but you'll see as we're going along, that's the place I'll get you to, that you will be able to look right at a design and know several things very quickly. Oh, this person is this, this, and this. Just in terms of being able to identify the components of the person's design. So we have the career types, there are 4 of them. We have the 9 functions that are in the design that we'll be exploring. There are 36 potential strengths. There are 64 individual traits. There are 6 potential qualities that align, right, with each of the traits. That's aspect of 384 different variations and line items, that are also part of the potential of the way we understand something. And of course, there's so much more. Like, really, there's so much more. And I think that to me is my own humility I try to bring to this experience. Yes, I've absolutely been studying. I continue to study. I continue to learn. I teach. Like I said, I work with clients. I'm using this every day. And there's so much more for me to learn every single day. And I'm always interested in pursuing that because there's always just more and more layers to keep uncovering in this journey. But that also, on the other hand, also doesn't have to stop me, right, from working with clients. Like, I started working with clients as soon as I could. I started doing it right away. So I'm also a fan of that, and I'm going to encourage you in that direction as well. Don't wait to some magical time in the future, right? It's really about learning. And of course, again, that it does come back to your decision-making strategy. It has to be right for you. But we don't want to stay in a place of fear or thinking that we're never going to know enough, because I don't think that's true. Like, when we are working on this together and you're learning in this way from a group, you'll be amazed at how much you're going to learn by the end of semester 1, the end of semester 2, and the connections that you'll keep making to other people on your journey. So the foundation of this idea, right, of the binary and the synthesis is that the binary is in the individual parts. It's the underlying detail. It's the opposites. It's how the mind functions. It's the this and the that. The synthesis is the whole. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. We call that the quantum. That's also about genetic continuity. It's also how the body functions, right, in a total experience. But in this journey, we're going to keep going through both, right? We're going to keep breaking down all of these individual parts, but then I'm going to keep bringing us back to the whole. How does this relate to the whole? What do we notice, about how these individual parts are coming together? Oops. So the synthesis creates something unique. This binary idea is, okay, well, we have blue, we have yellow. We have the conscious, we have the unconscious, we have the this and the that. We have the healthy, we have the unhealthy, the conditioned, the not conditioned, the self, the not self. We can do this all day long because we live in the binary. This is the human experience. So both, neither this nor that, together we can create something new. That's the synthesis, and that is the sum of the parts, the whole that is greater than the sum of the parts. It's also many layers go into synthesis. So again, in this journey, as we're breaking things down, we're checking on various things. We want you to get the language straight. We want to make sure that you have the correct information and that you're piecing it together, in the correct way in that sense. But then we constantly want to keep moving. I want to keep moving you to this place of, well, how do you keynote? How do you synthesize? How do you sum this up and speak to another person in a way that they're going to be able to grasp what it is you're telling them about their design? That's one aspect, but how it connects with whatever they came to you for. You know, is it for, you know, Sean works more like in the area of counseling. I work more as a corporate consultant and coach. You know, people are coming to us for different reasons, right? And then we're pulling in this information in a way and synthesizing it in a way that makes sense with our respective backgrounds. So the synthesis of design and personality, well, that's the red and black. We're going to keep looking at that. What do I have conscious? What do I have unconscious? And then where do I have definition, right? That would be the strength or channels in human design. Where am I open? And then this nature and nurture, this defined, undefined. So I'm going to break this down a little bit more right now. So first we have this synthesis of red and black. So when we talk about the conscious personality, there are these, 13 traits that you see here. And in human design, we have these letters sitting here representing. We go more into this into semester 2. In terms of what each of these means and then how you take information and apply it a little bit more deeply. We don't start there because, again, first we got to get the basics straight. But, E is core essence, and we have grounding. Then we have the driving force, which is the moon. Then we have the nodes here, which are the future and the past, which is really more about environment. C is communications, which is Mercury. The V is our values, which is Venus. The M is Mars, which is this maturing energy, an energy that we typically grow into. The L is our personal law, which is Jupiter, and where, we're meant to expand. J is that judge and discipline, which is Saturn. And then we have the U, which is our uniqueness, which is Uranus. H is what's hidden, that's Neptune. And T is truth and transformation, which is our Pluto. What is true for us? And I will say again, I said this a little bit earlier, the higher up, I'd say to some degree, even through Mars, Mercury, Venus, and Mars are considered the personal planets. And then beyond that are the outer planets. But then, of course, their time in a particular place varies pretty significantly. Pluto can sit somewhere for a couple of decades, and the others have quite significant cycles, but Jupiter moves about every 13 months. So it's going to vary there, but, that gives us some insight at another level as to what each of these things means. But we have these conscious traits, and they are based on the time of our actual birth, the date, the time, the location. The whole unconscious side of things, and this is where, this is what is different, right, from astrology. And I've studied astrology pretty extensively. So astrology is really focused, essentially here, right, on your time of birth. Human design adds another layer here. And how do we figure out this unconscious side of you, which is extremely significant, by the way? This is calculated by going back 88 days before your birth. So the software, of course, is going to do that automatically for you, but that's the calculation. So 88 days before birth defines this unconscious part of you. So this is really, sort of your mind in a sense, your personality, who you think you are. And over here on the unconscious side, this is the body. And Ra said, that is the life. The body is the life. That's the experience we're here to have, but it's our minds that are often getting in the way of that. So this is the first binary we must understand and how this synthesis comes together. It's the combination of these 26 individual traits, right? 13 here, 13 here, that come together to provide the definition in your design, including strengths and functions. Let's go to the next one. So our second look here is around the defined traits. So what we're looking at here is we just see a little piece of a design right here, and we see that we have a strength defined right here between the 21-45. So there's a defined strength. Well, how is a strength defined? It's defined, of course, by two individual traits. In this instance, the 21 and the 45. So we would say this person has this strength defined unconsciously. And then, of course, when two activated traits meet and they form this strength, that is what gives us the function definition, right? As soon as there's a strength, well, this gets defined, always. So that now creates an energetic circuit that creates, again, these defined functions on either end. All right, so we're just breaking it down. We also have different strength variations, and I'll take you through several different aspects of this. So we can have a strength that is totally red, right? From top to bottom, that's the connection. And that would be an unconscious strength. We would call that a tunnel. Meaning, think about what it's like when you drive through a tunnel. I mean, you can sort of see like what's in front of you, but not too much else, right? A lot of other things are kind of getting blocked when we go through a tunnel. We often come to know this about ourselves, I would say, over time and through experience and through your own experimentation of realizing how this is showing up for you, and also through your interactions with other people. But the one thing that is always true of this unconscious side of us, the way I think about it is, it's just never in the forefront of your mind. It's the kind of thing where if someone suddenly calls something out to you, you're like, oh yeah, I see that now. But it's not at the forefront of your understanding of yourself. It's just always sort of in the background. On the other side, you have a solid black line, which would be a conscious strength. We call this the road. So usually there's a lot more clarity for people about how this shows up. Now, this isn't a slice of my design, but I do have the 515 conscious, and it is a significant part of my design because the 5 is in my sun, and it's also conjunct my Mercury. So I know this very well about myself, the whole thing of patterns and rhythms, right? I know this, I see this, I live from this place. But I do have two strengths that are unconscious. I have come to understand them through my study, but when they're sort of happening, I don't notice it in the same way that I notice this over here, right? So that's kind of the big distinction between a conscious and unconscious strength. And then we can have other variations. We can have half red and half black, which is always very interesting. And depending upon which side the connection is on, it can just have a different kind of impact. So in this instance, this person's design would have the 5 unconscious and the 15 conscious. So it's just, again, like they may not understand, and in this particular design, this little cutout here, I can see like they're not connected over here over to their emotional intelligence. So this would tell me that they're a gut response builder. They may have a little bit of trouble with that in a sense because there's this unconscious line coming into it. So you just got to work with the person a little bit more to help them connect to it. But they might understand the 15, or they might know notice how they have patterns and rhythms, but not really understand why or what they are or how they come about, right? So it's that kind of difference. And then over here on this side, we can have a striped configuration where essentially what this is telling us is that the person has the strength of the 2946, but they have it both conscious and unconscious. And this creates sort of an overpass effect. So they're going to know it, but there's also this unconscious aspect of it as well that's also showing up for them. It's also the case, and you may have already noticed this in your own design, where, you know, you can have multiples, of course, of a particular trait that adds, you know, kind of even more weight to your design in a sense. Like I have the 46 3 times, but I don't have it, you know, I don't have the strength here. I have the 46, which, you know, often can feel like serendipity of being in the right place at the right time, but it is more than that. There is like a preparation behind it of, you know, from my other strengths and other parts of my design that are coming into play that are kind of getting me ready in a sense to be in the right place at the right time. So, you know, again, all these different configurations. Another combination could be a half red and then a half striped, or a half black and a half striped. So again, this combination of conscious and unconscious strengths that are showing up. Now, when we talk about the synthesis of the nature versus nurture, when we use this language, the nature side of us is what's defined in us, what we consistently broadcast and give to others, what we transmit out to the world. It is consistent and reliable in terms of your energy, and in that sense, fixed, right? That's what you came into the world with, your nature, where your definition is, whether it's conscious or unconscious, it's your nature. It's all the areas that are colored in your design, whether it's a function, a trait, or a strength. And then on the nurture side, these would be all of the white areas of your design, right? So the open functions plus all those other areas, right? All the open trait and strength areas. This is what you pick up. This is where you receive from others, you know, positive or negative, right? That's the whole idea of the conditioning. It's a receptor. And this is an inconsistent, unreliable form of personal energy. You know, lots of other things can happen here, but we're flexible in a sense in this place. When we have this openness in our design. And again, you know, this is also always really fascinating to me. And you're really going to see this as we get into everybody's design. You know, you might think, okay, yeah, hey, we have 13. I told you we have 13 conscious traits and we have 13 unconscious. But my gosh, the way that they show up in every person's design can just look wildly different. I mean, wildly different. You know, some people can look really defined. Some people can look wildly open, and they could both be express builders, you know? So they're just the way that these things come together to form our unique design and experience is really endless. I think is one way to put it. It really is endless. So we have this interrelatedness of our nature and nurture, right? These things do fit together. Again, the nature is what we give. It's our definition. The nurture is what we receive from others, from the environment. If you think about when you were little, you know, and this is always interesting as an adult right now to go back into your design or to first start learning about your design and then to think back about your childhood and the experiences that you were having there, because, you know, where you were undefined, you were getting, of course, majorly conditioned by your parents and your siblings or your family. Whoever you were raised with was influencing you significantly in your first years of life. And then you went to school. And then there was a whole other layer of conditioning happening there, right? So certainly as adults now, we're like, you know, unraveling all of these things about ourselves. You know, again, not to go through a process, I would say, of guilt, you know, or shame or anything like that, but to seek to understand who, me. I'm just trying to understand myself better. The better I understand myself, the more I can help my own daughters, help them understand their design. Now, you know, they had the benefit of me starting to share this with them now 6 years ago. My girls are 21 and 24 now. But I've been talking about this with them for some time to help them understand themselves so that they can go forth in a very different way. But these puzzle pieces are really designed for us to connect. I always say, the way I think about this too is we really do need each other. You know, we do. We can't, it's not just like, well, gee, if I could just be by myself, you know, in my own aura, then everything would be perfect. No, it wouldn't, because you're still going to be conditioned by the transits, even if you lived in the proverbial cave. That's not going to cut it. You know, there can be positive aspects for sure of how things come together. And what I have personally noticed is that, again, the more I have come to understand my nature and how my design shows up, how these things show up for me, or what's drawn out of me when I'm with a group, the better I can understand, you know, these other aspects of what's going on. And I have to say, overall, I really do find it an absolutely fascinating journey that just brings new things every single day. So we have this humanity puzzle, right? There are no extra pieces. Everyone is here because he or she has a place to fill, and every piece must fit itself into the big jigsaw puzzle. And that really is at the heart of what human design and BG5 is all about, right? What is your individual piece? And how does that piece connect with the broader puzzle that is humanity? All right, I'm going to go into the assignment for class 1, and then I'm going to go over to the portal in a little bit here and also show you some things over there. And then, you know, I'll answer questions. We'll kind of get into other things. Most classes, by the way, do take the full 2 hours, because along the way, I'm always going into everyone's designs, you know, looking at things, pulling them up. We're having discussion. We'll do a little bit of that in a moment here. But again, I don't have everyone's designs because you're not all signed up at this point. But just know from class 2 on, I will do that consistently every single class. So one of the things we recommend you do is update your student profile. I'm going to show you where that is in a moment. But you'll go into your profile. We recommend you add your picture. And you actually create a profile for yourself. Think of this as your first business card with BG5. You know, who are you? What do you want people to know about you? And, you know, you can continue to add to it over time. Like once you go through certification, if that's the journey you're on, you know, people definitely look up your info and want to see more. You can add testimonials along the way, and your email, your website, your social media, anything else about you that you want to include in your profile. And then, of course, you know, over in the portal is where we'll be doing the work, you know, you'll be sharing, you know, perspectives and homework and anything like that. Your reading assignment, not just for this week, this one you would do between now and class 5, is to start reading about the 9 centers. As you can see, it's a decent amount of pages. So you just want to pace yourself, you know, just keep going into the book in the way that we're recommending. recommending and read a little bit at a time and put it down and take it in. Like I said at the start, this is not about being a game of memorization. Sure, do I need to understand things to work with a client? Absolutely. And I do. And it came over time. It came through exposure and repetition and starting to work with clients and starting to notice what I was seeing with them, right? So all these things are true. You are not going to be able to take in this whole book in a weekend and suddenly know what's what. The practice assignment is to print out a blank chart, and that is over in the portal. Again, I'll show you where that is in a moment, but you're going to do several different activities in here. So you're going to know where you just have red, where you just have black, where you have red and black, right? You're going to do this on 4 separate blank charts, and then you'll use just a different color to show all your white areas that are not your nature. I think you will find this to be a very interesting activity. And, you know, even again, some of you may understand this about yourselves, but it's interesting to do it on paper. Of course, I can see it easily in the software, but to go through and color in each area and really look at it and notice it will definitely provide certainly a first layer of insight about your design. And then what I'd like you to do is to share that in the forum, you know, your experience with it, what you learned from it, anything. I mean, it's always up to you what you want to share in the forum. So this is just the example of chart 1. You're going to use a red pen to kind of go through and highlight all the reds, and you'll want to note what functions you also have defined. And then chart 2 would just be the black, right? And then chart 3 would be the red and black, so the synthesis of your design. And then in chart 4, I mean, this image is in black and white, but you could use a different color. And then show where all of your openness is in your design. All right, so that was our introduction and exploration to the red and black. So I just want to get my camera back on, and you're welcome to turn yours back on as well. I'm going to go over to the portal, and I just want to walk through a couple of things over here, and then we can have a bit more of a chat. So when you sign in to your BG5 account, let me just go over to my account first. So in here is where we're saying you can add, actually you have to go into my profile. Let me see, yes. Go into your profile to begin to, wait, hold on. I'm saying 2 different things. There's the My Profile, which is background. This is just in your profile here for BG5. We just see this behind the scenes. This isn't posted, but your picture does show up, and please do add your picture. And then your professional profile is what goes out to the world. So you can put, you know, your email, your website, if you have one, and then anything that you want to describe about yourself here in your biography. I also have testimonials that I include in here. And then you're going to add your chart image. And then, you know, you're just updating your profile in there. So that's the main thing to know about that, right? Of the whole thing of updating your profile. Otherwise, when you subscribe to a BG5 course, that is going to show up under your active courses. Of course, I've been with BG5 for a while, so I have all kinds of things in here. You are here in Foundations Semester 1. Today is September 6th, and here is Sean and I leading you through this Semester 1. So we're right here in Class 1. I just want to point out a couple of other things here. Under the course resources, the administrative team will post other videos, you know, that they think are interesting or relevant. There's just other downloads. You know, this BG5 terminology is good, especially if you're coming from just the human design side and you're not familiar with the BG5 terminology. This is a great little cheat sheet for the terminology, and also another one for the traits and strengths. So all of that is sitting under course resources. Again, in terms of required materials, the book is the main thing, right? So it's just get your book and start reading it. It is a great reference. And I continue to go into this book 6 years in. Like, I'm always pulling out this book, looking up something, going deeper, seeking to understand something in another way. You can also order this set of materials, strengths by type, as another resource if you're interested. It's not required. Once you go over into certification, more things are required. You know, you're just going to need them, you know, for your work with clients. And then over here is where we'll see the group of students who ultimately do decide to move forward and sign up. So all the classes are listed here. There is a semester project at the end of the semester. I'll talk about that much later on, but essentially, you know, all the things that we cover in semester one, you're going to do a first pass at that for yourself in your first semester project. So if I go into the intro and exploring red and black, do make sure that you take care of the basics here. You want to sign the student integrity agreement. You can check off like as you complete things here, and then it will mark, you know, you complete for that class. Under the resource section, right now is just that terminology handout and the practice assignment handout. As soon as we're done and the Zoom uploads, I will get that posted. It usually takes like a few hours for it to process and then for me to go in and do the upload. But when I do the upload, I also post a communication here in the class forum. So I will add a post to say, hey guys, everything is up. And I usually reiterate a bit about the energy of the day or anything else I feel like sharing, depending upon what I'm inspired to share. And Sean, I know you will do the same thing, right? Anything else we want to kind of contribute here in the forum, please do. And the same goes for you. You know, we want to hear from you in between the classes. And, you know, comment, ask questions, whatever you want to share over here. So it'll be as vibrant as you make it, right? As you engage with it. And then the assignment information is under here as well. So all of that I was just covering with you is listed right in here. And by the way, with the resources, I post several things. I post the Zoom that you will be able to just play outright right in the portal, but you can also download it. And then I'll give you the handout of the slides that I went through today. So I post that as a PDF, and then you'll have that as well for your reference and, you know, kind of going back. Sometimes there's a chance I could get it posted up front, but sometimes I am adding some other things kind of leading right up to the class. So it kind of just depends, but it's certainly always going to be there for you afterwards. All right, so that's a bit about the forum. So let me just hop out actually of sharing for now and come over here. And Sean, let me just check in with you. I saw some activity over there in chat, but anything you want to call out?
Mostly some really good questions about the red and the black, and that I think that will become clearer after you do your homework assignments this week and you get a feel for actually drawing that stuff in. And if you have a chance to read through the Human Design, the definitive book, and get a feel for what that stuff is kind of about, then you're going to start to probably identify with, oh yeah, I noticed this. I know this about myself, and this is like not so apparent. And from my own experience, it seems like the older you get or the more aware you get, the red starts to become more apparent, because the red, remember, it kind of bubbles up from your unconscious. It comes it kind of comes up before your nose, you know, like, oh, where's that coming from? What's that? And then you learn to recognize, because you study the different traits and so forth and qualities, and you get a feel for what that is. Whereas the black, as soon as you learn what that means from the classes themselves or the books themselves, you'll probably be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I know that. That's clear in me. So then there were some questions about the nuances, how those combine, and that gets tricky because you're dealing with two things that become a synthesis, right? They become a quantum. So it's hard to piece those back, to differentiate those out from each other, but they do tend to kind of show up differently in my experience because all of my strengths are partially unconscious.
Okay.
And
Human design, Sean.
as Veronica will go through later, or I don't know where that comes in, foundations or certification, that gets a little tricky because when you have a strength that's unconsciously defined, it appears to the mind as if it's completely unconscious, which is not true, but the mind does not necessarily see the definition. And so the mind doesn't relate to it being defined, which can create some problems. And that's a little more advanced, but you get a feel for if you have a strength that's completely conscious, you're probably really going to identify and relate to that strength. Like, oh yeah, that's me. I get it.
Mhm.
If you have it partially unconscious, it's going to be a little like, I kind of get it, but don't really. And if it's totally
Exactly.
unconscious, you're like, I don't get it at all, but I notice it sometimes.
Yeah.
I
And
think it's the simplest way of putting that.
absolutely. And I was kind of calling that out before, right? Like I
Yeah.
have the 515 conscious. You can see, I mean, aside from the 46, I do have a combo, but I don't have any of the swirly type ones. And then I have these two unconscious up here, right? So in that sense, it's pure, either conscious or unconscious. And just to reiterate what Sean was saying, right, that is my experience of my mind as well, right? There's the way I describe my experience with this, because I will have people ask me, well, how do you experience that? And for me, and Sean, I know you have the 6447 as well. So let's do a little contrast here. Like for me, that's unconscious. What I notice is my experience has been that I can be in meetings with a CEO, or I could be talking to someone who is, I don't know, has like some sort of technical aptitude doing something, which I have no knowledge about whatsoever. And I notice time and time and time again that I can talk to anybody, anywhere, doing anything. And I have no actual knowledge about this stuff, but I'm able to like have this conversation with them and somehow ask like questions and conceptually understand what they are telling me. I have no idea how. And I think it's this, I'm not
Sure.
trying to figure it out. I cannot figure it out, but I can connect with my inspiration, right? Where does
Mhm.
inspiration come from? Right. This is you see, it goes above the head, right? Our higher selves, we're pulling in something, and then we're trying to take that and turn it into something in our mind. We're trying to make sense of it. But this is where, you know, you can spin. I absolutely have the potential of spinning in my mind because, right, I'm disconnected in a sense from the rest of my body. My head is up here. My head is always busy, always stuff going on in my head. So Sean, what does that look like for you? Because you also have the 6447, like how, but you have part of it conscious.
Yeah, it's a great question. And mine goes to expression where, as well, whereas yours doesn't. Yours stays up in the mind
Right.
without a consistent way of getting into the throat or expressing itself, right? Which creates pressure that needs to be bridged in order to express yourself or vocalize what you have to say. And that's where it can help to be with small groups or other people that facilitate that process, right? As we'll learn as we go. But to answer your question, so if we look at the traits, right, the 64 is kind of the trait of this is an abstract strength. So this is a strength of abstraction or abstract experience in life. So it's basically a strength that has to do with reflecting on past experiences and bringing them forth through conceptualization. And then my 4323, which is also partially unconscious, structures them into a way of explaining them, hopefully, in a way that people can be empowered by that. Okay, that they can get some benefit from that. So it's breaking it down. It's taking this complex, myriad of images of the past that like a movie picture that the mind is trying to put together. And the 64 is unconscious. So these memories come up unconsciously. They come up out of the blue, like, oh, what's going on there? I'm hardly aware of them. But then my 47 grabs hold of it and says, hey, let's realize, rather than be oppressed by these memories, let's realize something of value out of them. And that's where my conceptualization process takes place and gathering that data and making something out of it that's constructive. That's what my conceptualization is designed to do. And then it starts to formulate or to, sorry, that's the wrong keynote, but it starts to structure or make clear from an individual sense of my own unique knowing, to break that down into simplified parts in a way that I can titrate that and express it to people in a way that, they can really relate to and go, aha, okay, I know what you're talking about. Uh, that's how my mind works. Yeah, but it's mostly unconscious. So it's like, yeah, it's interesting to navigate, to allow it to come up and then process it the best I can unconsciously or consciously.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Sean. And I think, I would just reiterate to all of you again, right? It really is like the beginning of such an exciting journey when we study this together and the other benefit you get from studying in a group like this is like, oh, other people are just going to start noticing things in your design and call them out to you as well, or ask you a question about them. And that is going to bring a level of, your own consciousness to that as well. Sean, I'm just looking here. I see that Andrea is here. And Andrea, I see that you're muted. I'm not sure if you want to come off mute, but I know you're officially signed up for the class. So I just want to check in with you. Hello. How are
Hello.
you today?
I'm great, thank you. You?
So glad you're here. I just want to see, like, is there anything from this first class that you want to comment on or that you have questions about?
I don't have them yet. I feel like from what you were sharing now about the conscious to the red and the black,
Yeah.
for sure, my 36, 35 is way stronger in my life than my 515. I
Yeah.
often get annoyed by the fact that I change my patterns or I change my routine. And as soon as like something is installed in my life, there is something happening and I have to start all over. I'm getting better at it, especially since I started to study human design. I'm accepting it. But it's surely way more challenging in a way to like compute with it.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? That it's exactly that. Just hearing someone speak about it, she's like, "Well, this kind of annoys me. I like this over here. I know this, right?" She's conscious over here, and she's an express builder. So this whole thing of like the getting it out, the communicating it, the grounding it, the getting it out into the world, I just think that's always most exciting to an express builder. And you really probably don't like this feeling, like you said, of being impeded somehow, or blocked in some way, of something sort of slowing you down, because an express builder typically wants to move.
Yeah. Even though this movement can trigger people, I feel that this 35, 36, 35 trigger a lot of people. So create movement around me. I feel more comfortable with that than the other one.
Well, yeah, I mean, 36 is crisis and 35 is progress through the crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that, do you feel in that regard that, do crises come to you, or do you feel that, I don't know, maybe that you see other crises, but you can move towards progress, or do you see it in some other way, like through your experiences of, and crisis is kind of an intense word. It could just be like something needs to change, we got to move on from something, a crisis in that sense.
I think it's a bit all over my experience, and I'm accepting it, meaning that I can arrive, for example, in project, and when I arrive, some stuff need to change, or by me expressing some things or doing just my job, people feel triggered to do some change. It may be like entering a situation where there is a lot of drama and I don't actively generate the drama, but just my presence makes some stuff that were always in a status quo, not being the status quo anymore. So there is like drama bit all over. And sometimes my friends were like, oh, it must, especially when I was younger and like, grow up always with the same people, it's like, it must be you. that brings the drama. And it's like, I'm pretty sure I'm not bringing in this actively, like hiding stuff, or like I don't do that. But my presence or being actively into dynamics either bring up changes, bring up drama because people don't want the change or don't understand where this is coming from. But most of the time, I feel it's always with things that are not supposed to be there, or there is like they're supposed to be renovated in a sense.
Right. Well, it's interesting, right? And this is where, like, over time, right, as we keep exploring all these different layers of your design and others' designs, it's like, okay, well, Andrea is a 5'2". She's a natural messenger. So there's this component as well of this, message that she's bringing about what needs to change and how to make progress towards this change. It's this type of thing that Sean and we will keep doing this with all of you, right? You're going to hear us like pull things together and say it in a keynote and think, oh my gosh, like, how do you get to that? But you will, like everybody, you'll get there. You'll just get there through time, through your studies. And this is where I just always encourage everyone. It's like, just practice speaking to us with it so that, you just get more and more comfortable with like, well, I think this is what I'm seeing, or this is what I notice, and you'll keep formulating, your idea about it. So thank you, Andrea, for sharing.
And I feel now that I was sharing, sorry.
Oh yeah,
No,
Sean,
go
I
ahead.
do,
Go ahead.
I do want you to weigh in too.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrea, go ahead. I'll weigh in
And
afterward.
then I just like had a thought now because while I was saying this, I realized that maybe also my anointment counts because since I have these two channels, when change start to happen, I naturally restructure things and dynamic, but not all of this is as clear. So like this process starts to be like somehow clear. I can be rationalizing it, but there is a part of restructuring that is like out of my control. Just yeah, something I thought now. Thank you though.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that is interesting. I'm just looking at your design, thinking about that, but it's an interesting observation. Yeah, Sean.
That segues into what I was going to comment
Oh,
on
good.
is, your 35 is in your nodal environments. And it looks like if you're in your first half of life, which it looks like you are, you're literally being pulled into environments that are pulling you into crisis or pulling you into pragmatic solutions for crisis. So you're not going to get out of that. You're looking to see that. You're going to be magnetized into your environment around you that's constantly pulling the crisis out of you, pulling you into crisis, and pulling you into finding solutions through that. And remember, crisis is just inexperience to experience. That's all it is. That's what Ross said. It's like, it's inexperience. There's a crisis that happens when we're not experienced, we're freaked out. And then as we get experience, right, then we progress into the 35 through that manifestation expression that happens, and we move through the crisis. We learn from it in hindsight. And then the new one might begin at some point because it's also cyclical, because it's part of the abstract experience
Yeah.
circuit, which we'll get into later. Sorry,
And,
that's way down the
and
line, but
it's gonna,
just,
yeah,
yeah.
I was just gonna say, Sean, sorry, that this is gonna be so much fun. When, this whole thing of like bouncing off one of each other, right? Like with the things you're calling out, then I noticed she has the 6 and I have the 6 as well, conscious. The 6 is friction. So there is a degree of friction, Andrea, that you probably do bring to situations that you may or may not realize. But it's not that it's negative per se. It's just that people might feel compelled, I think, with what Sean was just saying then, right? To like take action, to go from inexperience to experience. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you for this exchange.
All right. Thank you, Andrea. Okay. Anybody else on the call want to come online, come on camera, ask anything, or anything else that we can answer for you in this first class? All right. If not, then I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And say thank you again. I'm glad you were here. I hope you enjoyed this first class. For those of you that were coming to check it out, Andrea, we'll see you and the others in the subsequent classes. And just a reminder that we start an hour earlier next week. So we can do just a little bit more of an extensive meet and greet and talk a little bit more. Just we'll be looking for you to share a little bit more about your background and, you know, just do all of that in the lead up to the actual start of class. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Have a great rest of your weekend. All right, bye.
I think Sarah just came in.
Oh, okay.
If you want to include her in the process, I think she's just coming in. Someone from BG5 just came in.
Yeah, Sarah.
Is that for afterwards or is that for now? I just wanted to catch it before.
It's for now, but that's fine. We're good.
Hi.
Hey, Sarah. I just happened to be trending a little bit earlier today with this introductory information. So there's still a few people hanging here. If there is anyone that has any questions for Sarah, she's from the office in a sense. She's the associate director of BG5. So if there's anything else that we can answer for you, we're happy to do that right now. Yeah, Sarah, anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be here. I don't know what's been said so far, but it's great to see you. And thanks to those of you that have stuck around so that I could join. I just put a code in the chat. It's called BG5 Save 50. So that's our special gift to you for being here today. You can get $50 off foundation. That's the early bird price. And if you have any questions about pricing or need a payment plan, please feel free to email me directly. I'll put my email in the chat. But this is really a great opportunity for you if you want to learn more about yourself, learn more about others. And by the end of this course, like Veronica has probably mentioned, you're going to know how to interpret a career design chart. That's something that you're not going to get in some of these other, pop human design for business courses, right? That are really quick. Our course is spread out purposefully so that you can start to learn the information and integrate the information into your life and be very confident in understanding all the components that make up a chart. So it's very intentional. It's very thoughtful in how we do this, and it's also very supportive to you. We are an accredited school, so you can get a transcript and CEU credits if you need them. That will be available to you. And that's all I really have to say. I hope that was helpful, and I'll just open the floor to Veronica and anyone else that has any questions, but I'm super happy to be here and see you guys here.
Thank you for popping in, Sarah. Reiterating that. I did see that, Harmer, you were just asking the question, well, like what happens if I can't be here in a given week? It's totally fine. We do have people that sign up from all over the world. And, the main thing is you're always going to have access to all the materials and recordings. I just recommend that you kind of still keep the pace. If you can't be here in a given week, then go watch the recording, stay up to speed on the assignment. I just, share that purely on a practical level, right? Because otherwise you can end up getting behind pretty quickly. And in that sense, you can still get caught up. I just think it's a nicer pace, right? If you kind of like come along the way and, keep learning in sort of chunks along the way. I think it's easier to kind of retain the information, but it's not a problem at all to miss. Any given week or multiple weeks. Sometimes a person is on vacation or whatever the case might be. The material is always there for you. You can always then post in the forum with your questions and your assignment. And even when you do complete the course in that way, Sean was also just noting this. I mean, yes, you got to also submit that semester project, but then you're still meeting all of the requirements that are needed to continue to move. So to move from semester 1 to semester 2, to move from semester 2 ultimately over to certification. All right. Great. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for being here. So I'll see you next week. Again, signing in earlier next week for our little meet and greet. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Great to meet you.
Thanks, Sean.
I'll go ahead and pause the
Everybody.
recording.
Yes.